All right. Hello, hello. I decided to do a lunch stream. I'm at work, but I'm gonna do this lunch stream. I was listening to this the Black Authorities. Um, I was listening to this broadcast he did on June 7th. I'm a little backed up on these. This is absolutely correct and right. I've noticed this a while. He hits a whole bunch of different points. The title of this is the Anti-Black Minority Coalition. We always hear about this black and brown, yellow and brown, rainbow coalition, stuff like that. But it's all a farce, right? It is about advantageous determination in situations. When things hit a little too close to home for other groups, um, they try to get on code, but it's a little too late. So we're gonna play this and I'm just gonna comment on some of this. I don't know how much I'm gonna play in 30 minutes, but we'll see what we can do. This is very important.
Tonight on the Black Channel, everyone is beginning to re-examine their priorities as we now see that white supremacy is global and endemic. We talk about the war against black people, all against all. The Black Channel is live.
So I'm gonna skip.
No choice, soil. Long before you ever get to this point, you gotta have credibility in the soil. And man, they're losing it on all fronts. Because we have remained consistent and because we have kept the issue blackness and because we've done something for the first time that's never been done, every time somebody tried to say minority or something else, we booted their ass off the stage and said, no, the issue is black, period. That steering wheel is going to remain straight. Because we have remained uncompromising. We control the national narrative, and now, as the ancient saying goes, Muhammad need not come to the mountain. All Muhammad need do is stand still, and the mountain will have no choice but to come to him. And that's where we are right now. That's where we are right now. We control the national narrative right now, and now, as the ancient saying goes, they're starting to Muhammad need not come to drabs, but it's breaking through. Now we are examining the collaborators with the white supremacist structure.
Right.
The anti-black minority coalition.
Right.
If you will.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're front and center and in the spotlight.
Right.
Because we didn't allow anybody to change the subject. They are now front and center. Your national publications, websites are discussing what we've been saying for years. It was forbidden. But because we have refused to compromise, there it is. There it is. Yahoo, Fox, The Washington Post is getting around. Because the new black media has been talking about it. Your old black media ain't said nothing. Your old black media is still trying to get a job at the white media companies.
I'm going to skip here.
All over the place, Cubans all over the place who identify as white.
Hold on.
Hispanics identify as white.
There we go.
And black people have just been assuming, well, if you call yourself something other than European Caucasian, you don't see yourself white. And we had to break it to y'all that no, there's a bunch of folks, if you're from Cuba or the Dominican Republic or one of those places, oh, they identify as not white. And then you take a look all over Florida, all over New York, Puerto Ricans, all over the place, Cubans all over the place who identify as white.
Right.
And will proudly tell you, no, I'm not colored, I'm white.
I'm no black. I'm white. I'm no black.
I am a white person of Hispanic descent. I'm white.
Right.
and will stand on it.
Right.
We talked about this over a decade ago.
Right. It's always been like
If you're here at
that.
the Black Channel, you're a decade ahead of the curve. We talked about this all along. So in this story from Nicole Aceveda of NBC News, Latinos must confront ingrained anti-Black racism. These are our phrases that we have been using forever to specifically distinguish who and what the problem is.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody talking about just, quote, racism. No, damn sure not no reverse racism. Now they're using our phraseology. Now the story goes, I'm going to skip down some of the story to where it says, white presenting Latin, I'm sorry. They're talking about a activist in Afro-Latinx, really. Anna Sands, she's 26, Afro-Latinx, and she was at a protest. And they said, although she was shaken by military-grade helicopters that felt like a tornado, she said the turbulent protests did not stop long overdue discussions about anti-Black Latino racism and discrimination.
Right.
White-presenting Latinos should use this time to, quote, reconcile with the privilege their light skin gives them in systems tainted with white supremacy and figure out ways to use it in a productive way, Sands said. Jasmine Haywood, an Afro-Latina who has researched it, by the way, you see one they call Latinx, the other one they call Afro-Latinx, and the other one they call Afro-Latina. So I want you to catch that distinction. Jasmine Haywood, an Afro-Latina who has researched anti-Black Latino racism, told NBC News that millennial Latinos like Sands are looking to break cycles of internalized racism and the ways Latinos perpetuate and uphold white supremacy. Now, that's NBC News.
Facts. Okay. Facts. So a lot of you have already heard this. A lot of you seen this. This isn't anything new. Like I said, he's speaking to something that's been going on for a long time. You know, like I said in the other stream the other day, we see a lot of this this talk. We let me just be very clear. When other groups, quote unquote minority groups, see the writing on the wall, that's when they want to go ahead and try to buddy up with Black folks. When they see it coming down the pipeline, see, in a Donald Trump presidency, in a Donald Trump environment that's emboldened white supremacy and racists, you have this sort of situation where, damn, they're going hard on the Blacks. Well, shit, if we don't stand with the Blacks, man, they're going to do it to us. But in an environment where they don't see themselves being threatened by what happens to Black folks, they're cool with it. Like you said, they enable it, not only in America, but in their own countries. We've seen the hierarchy all around the world. The lighter skinned people are in most of your on your TV. They're put as the pedestal of what the community, what the system, what the country, what the people, what the culture should be. And you leave the darker skinned people at the bottom. It's like that in Asia. It's like that in China. It's like that in India. It's like that in South America. It's like that everywhere. It's like that in Africa. There's tons of anti-Black racism in all of these countries. So I do think there are some honest Latinos, Hispanics, Asians, and other quote unquote minority groups that are down for the cause. But a lot of it, I think, is I don't think they're going to stop with the Blacks. I think we're next. So we got to do something about it. But when, as groups, you didn't feel threatened, you participate in the fuckery. You participate in the anti-Black racism. So it's hard for me to get a me in general, it's hard for me to be a part, be excited about the idea of a black and brown coalition when this is the shit that you practice. You don't even believe the shit you're talking about. Actions speak louder than words. He's preaching on this. Let's continue.
That's a white Latina reporter using that phrase, saying those words. That is NBC News and a white Latina saying those words. That wasn't a quote from Jasmine Haywood, by the way. That was the writer of the article saying those words. Internalized racism and the ways Latinos perpetuate and uphold white supremacy. So, Neely Fuller's prophecy has come to pass. Neely Fuller always said that we cannot let it be called racism. It's got to be called white supremacy.
Exactly.
So that you are specifically saying what it is. So just in case you all were wondering, Neely Fuller's mission in that regard, Neely Fuller's mission has succeeded because the national dialogue now calls it white supremacy. And even outside of Black society, it is now addressed as white supremacy, not racism. Now, they go on to say, Haywood said, quote, what Latinos need to realize, this is Haywood, what Latinos need to realize is that our oppression is bound up and intertwined with the oppression of the Black community, Haywood said. Until they are liberated, until they are free from injustices and oppression, we will never be liberated. Now, please understand, that was your Afro-Latina talking, by the way. What Latinos need to realize is that our oppression is bound up and intertwined with the oppression of the Black community.
Exactly.
Until they are liberated, until they are free from injustices and oppression, we will never be liberated. So even your so-called advocates among Afro, quote, Latinas, gotta watch a bunch of them, even your so-called advocates see it as, oh, well, you see, I'm Afro-Latina. Emphasis on the Latina, not the Afro.
Right.
Emphasis on the Latino, not the Afro.
Mm-hmm.
Emphasis on that. Haywood said anti-Blackness sentiments are ingrained in our cultures in part because generations of Latinos were, quote, taught to seek partners that have a certain European or white phenotype.
Boom.
Lighter skin to
Boom.
lighten their...
Boom. I've heard this shit before personally. Improve the race. That person, you're gonna marry that person, and they're too black. They look too black. You need to marry somebody lighter. You need to preach. He's preaching. Let's keep going.
Family trees, end quote. George Zimmerman, the son of an Afro-Peruvian mother and a white father, shot and killed Trayvon Martin, an unarmed Black teenager. Geronimo Yanez, a Latino police officer, fatally shot Philando Castillo, 32, during a traffic stop. In a research paper she co-authored, Haywood described those instances as, quote, violent white supremacy being deployed through white passing U.S. Latinx bodies. Nearly 60 million Latinos live in the United States, most of whom can trace their heritage back to Latin America and the Caribbean. Now, please understand, people remember, that's geographic, that's not racial. Latin America is a place, not a race.
Right.
The Caribbean is a place, not a race.
Exactly.
Please keep that in mind. Story goes on to say, a 2016 Pew Research Center survey reported that a quarter of all U.S. Latinos identify as Afro-Latino or Afro-Caribbean or of African descent with roots in Latin America. Did you all catch that? A quarter. A quarter.
Let's play that back.
Jose built nearly 60 million Latinos live in the United States, most of whom can trace their heritage back to Latin America and the Caribbean. Now, please understand, people, remember, that's geographic, that's not racial. Latin America is a place, not a race. The Caribbean is a place, not a race. Please keep that in mind. Story goes on to say a 2016 Pew Research Center survey reported that a quarter of all U.S. Latinos identify as Afro-Latino or Afro-Caribbean or of African descent with roots in Latin America.
60 million and only a quarter acknowledge African and Black roots. I'm no black. I'm no black.
Did you all catch that? A quarter. A quarter. Jose Wilson, a math teacher in New York City who happens to be a Black Latino man, grew up visiting the Dominican Republic during the Christmas holidays. Quote, when you go to Santo Domingo, which is the capital, almost everybody there is about as dark, if not darker, than I am.
Mm-hmm.
You can obviously see they're descendants of enslaved people, he told NBC News. While Latinos largely acknowledge their ethnicity and African roots, dating to Latin America's colonial period, when mixing occurred among indigenous people, white Europeans, slaves from Africa, and Asians, many still consider themselves as Black. In Pew's survey, 39% of Afro-Latinos identified as white. 39% of Afro-Latinos identified as white.
What?
This is from Pew Research. I'm stopping because I want that to sink into your ass for just a moment. And YouTube is attempting to suppress this video tonight. So I want you all to make sure you share this. %39%. NBC News is telling you all what we've been saying now for decades.
Right.
They're sitting up here quantifying what we've been saying for decades now. The reason that I was able to accurately predict that Donald Trump would be elected and took you state by state and explained to you the demographics, and everybody was shocked. A bunch of niggas was trying to argue with me about Florida, a place you've never been.
Right.
Didn't know the demographics of, didn't know the socioeconomics of. I did, which is why I knew between the white folk coming down from New York and the white identifying Latinos, y'all don't know Florida.
They really don't.
You all, oh, Trump's gonna win that. Nah, they ain't gonna happen. Latinos, they like us. Nah, they ain't gonna. Remember all them niggas who was saying that thing? You can't find any of them now, by the way.
Exactly.
They've been shut the hell up.
Mm-hmm. But
I knew this the whole time. And for those of you who are listening to the white media, you knew the whole time too. In Pew's survey, 39% of Afro-Latinos identified as white, while only 18% identified as Black. Even more Afro-Latinos, 24%, said their race was Hispanic, which is an ethnicity, not a race.
Right.
Now, remember when folk used to try to argue with us when we said these things, that Hispanics, not a race, it's an ethnicity. So these people are all now sitting up here acknowledging that. They're acknowledging what we've been saying the whole time. We've been saying this the whole damn time, and they're now acknowledging what we've been saying now for over a decade. Over a decade, they're finally saying it. When before they were attacking us for making that distinction. If you want to know what winning looks like, if you want to know what victory looks like, it looks like this. Story goes on to say, quote, they don't see the correlation of how ethnicity and race are two different aspects of their identity, Sands says, adding that some feel, quote, their Latinx history and culture will be erased if they identify as black or white, which is not the case.
Absolutely
and that again
not.
is possibly erasing the experiences of black and indigenous people. That's bullcrap. They don't want to identify as black because they understand that that's a disadvantageous position and they desire to identify as white. So for them,
okay, I gotta play that back. Y'all know, everything he's saying is true right now. Y'all know this. Y'all have seen it. You've heard it. Let's play it again.
Quote, their Latinx history and culture will be erased if they identify as black or white, which is not the case. And that again is possibly erasing the experiences of black and indigenous people. That's bullcrap.
Exactly.
They don't want to identify as black because they understand that that's a disadvantageous position and they desire to identify as white. So for them, Hispanic is a metaphor for non-black white status.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not Caucasian, but I got a non-black white status.
Right.
So don't let anybody sit up here and try to blow you over. Oh, well, they're just trying to chart out their own identity. No, they're not. They're playing a political game.
Exactly.
I can't really identify as white, but no, I'm making it clear that I ain't really black. No, I ain't black. Yeah, my skin, my hair, that don't mean nothing. I ain't black.
No black, Poppy. No black.
This is denial on a cosmic level.
Exactly. I'm no black.
Story goes on to say, at the same time, Latinos of every color face overt and subtle racism and discrimination, whether they were born in the U.S. or not. Hate crimes against them are on the rise, please. Many Latinos are harassed or even arrested for speaking Spanish in public, and they continue to face practical roadblocks to gain access to health care and economic and educational opportunities. Well, that's very interesting because clearly they don't see it as a problem. Even if the things that Nicole Acevedo said right there were accurate, which they're not. But even if they were, these folks are the very people who are upholding the system of white supremacy to begin with. They are the first foot soldiers that you encounter. Anybody who has been to El Paso, Texas, understands that. Anyone who's been there, San Diego, San Mateo, I can go down the list. You go to these places and you realize real damn quickly how differently you're treated. They understand. They're not dumb. They're not naive. They get it. Everybody wants to play this game where they understand they can't be white, but they desire to mistreat black people because even though they can't be white, they wish to identify with the white power structure.
Boom.
And that's what they do. Now, the next part of the article says, but despite their ethnic identification or the language they may speak, Afro-Latinos are, quote, first seen as black to white America. Unlike white-presenting Latinos, Haywood said, adding that people witnessed a prime example of that discrepancy during a recent arrest of a reporter. CNN correspondent Omar Jimenez, whose mother is black and whose father identifies as Colombian, was arrested on live TV last week while he was covering the protests in Minneapolis, even though his media credentials appeared visible. A colleague, fellow correspondent Josh Campbell, a white reporter also on the ground, was not arrested, according to CNN. quote, he's an Afro-Latino male, and his Latina dad, not really sure if that was meant to be there, but he's an Afro-Latino male, and his Latina dad didn't save him in that situation.
Sure didn't.
He was still arrested because he's a black man, period, said Haywood, who works at Lamina Foundation, an Indianapolis-based organization, seeking opportunities for all people, seeking to expand education opportunities for people. Julio Ricardo Varela, founder of Futura Media's Latino Rebels and a white presenting Latino himself, thinks it's crucial that Latinos recognize racism in their histories, not just as a U.S. issue. Quote, white passing Latinos really need to come to terms with their privilege in the context of anti-blackness. Well, we didn't have to kiss nobody's ass. We didn't have to sit up here with the weak and the slavish who told us that we couldn't make this a black issue because we need black allies. I mean, we need white allies.
Right.
So we have to water down what we say and make these other people comfortable. You got to understand, when you're dealing with people with square, stiff jaws who are sleeping with non-black people, the first thing they're going to tell you is the only way that you can exercise power is if you make white folk comfortable. No, the only way you can get in bed with a white person who harbors anti-black sentiments is if you make them comfortable.
Right.
If you're interested in power for yourself,
right,
you ain't trying to make them comfortable. You get power by making them uncomfortable.
Exactly.
And black folk have a tendency of listening to these live-in traitors who clearly their credentials are compromised.
Yep.
So if you're listening to one of the cartoon characters from Rick and Morty, then you're going to be led astray. But understand something. You got white presenting Latinos using the phrase anti-black racism because we demanded that it be made specific. And the folks sitting up here chasing, quote, white allies, as I've always told you, just like the civil rights generation, they don't want white allies. They're chasing interracial sexual access.
Exactly.
And as soon as we put the boot down on white supremacy's throat, them niggas gonna tell us we need to ease up on that. Okay, don't be too hard now. Don't be too hard now. Don't do that now.
Yep.
But now you see these other people are using our phraseology because we have been uncompromising. He said white passing Latinos really need to come to terms with their privilege in the context of anti-blackness, whether they were born in the U.S., Latin America, or the Caribbean. And they, quote, need to just accept the reality that we also come from a racist society that is embedded in white supremacy, Varela said. Muhammad need not come to the mountain. Muhammad need simply stand still and be uncompromising. And the mountain will come to him.
So he's hitting on, this is brilliant. He's hitting on so much. I remember growing up, I grew up in Illinois and I grew up in Florida. And I remember growing up and there was this girl on the bus, looked like a black girl, right? You know, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. And someone on the bus, maybe it was a black person, maybe it was a white person, Hispanic, I don't know. Someone had said, oh yeah, that black girl over there. She turns around. She's wearing a sewing as well. Not that, wearing a sewing as well. She turns around and says, I'm not black, I'm Panamanian. Like that makes a difference. Like I'm not black, I'm Panamanian. At a young age of 13, I'm not black, I'm Panamanian. Subsequently, this girl grows up. Bedwenching, basically. So basically, she bedwenching, right? So you can see it coming from a very young age. But she was taught that. Now, this chick, black is dark chocolate. same complexion as dark chocolate. Beautiful sister, beautiful body. I mean, beautiful mind, very sweet. One of the sweetest girls you want to meet. But the moment that she got mistaken, quote unquote, as being black, she flipped. She went off. She had a Valley Girl accent all the way back then. Um, Still has it now. That's what she wanted to identify with. She wanted to white identify. She's been like that since she got over, I guess, got over here. So it's just one of those strange situations. Just seeing it at a young age and seeing it play itself out, you know, she now she I have no ill will toward against her or anything like that. But I saw the evolution and who she's become as of now. And, she's for sale, She moved to one of the whitest states and, she does adult stuff now. And it's like, damn, you know. And there was always a placating to white men or non-black men. And it was just like, wow. And you see that. Like you said, you see that with Doja Cat, right? You see it with a whole bunch. You see it with all the bedwenches. You see it with all the swirlers. You know what I'm saying? You see it with a lot of not there's a sect of very specific people I'm talking about. I'm not talking about all. I'm just saying you can see it. It's readily available and apparent. And so this hit me really close because it's like it's so apparent. I think we all know somebody that's black by United States standards, and no one's trying to marginalize their culture. But even they know at a young age, even they're taught, hey, if someone calls you black, you may look black, but you aren't black. Because they know that black folks get a bad rap. They know black folks are a target. They know it's disadvantageous to be considered black in the world and over here. See, if they can differentiate themselves, they don't mind what happens to black folks. But when they get lumped in with us, that is when there's this black and brown coalition. When the block gets a little too hot, oh, now we're brothers and we're in it together. Interesting, right? Interesting. Let's continue.
But not if you have a bunch of flunkies and lackeys who are looking to sell you out so that they can get interracial sexual access or individual trinkets for themselves. Let this be our lesson that we don't ever need to listen to them at all ever again. Haywood compared white supremacy to air. Quote, you can't help but breathe it in and be part of it. But she said acknowledging one's racial biases is the first step to confronting anti-black racism. Now, Varela also said there's been really uncomfortable, real conversations going on for years around this issue, and I'm actually encouraged that this could be the tipping point. But the important observation here is that
Hold on a moment.
right now, black voices need to be. amplified. There's been an important conversation going on this issue. Where, Mr. Varela? Where? It hasn't been going on in the white media, hasn't been going on at MSNBC, hasn't been going on at Fishbowl Head, Roland Martin, hasn't been going on at TV One, News One, Capital One, Fiber One. It hasn't been going on in any of these places. So where has this discussion been going on for years at, Mr. Varela, outside of the new black media? Where have these discussions been going on? Tell me exactly where. So you see, they're referencing what we do while simultaneously refusing to acknowledge that we're the only place this discussion has been happening. And Nicole Acevedo put him on the spot. But we're the only place that discussion has been occurring. And as you all was wondering, when things gonna change, it changed right about now. But understand something, I didn't need NBC News to acknowledge this. I didn't need NBC News to acknowledge this. I told you that we were the black media. I told you all that we were winning. I told you, hey, take a look at the numbers. I'm not gonna keep saying we. After all these years of saying we're winning, here we are. Here we are being uncompromising. The story goes on to say, Sands said a way to do that is by paying attention to the ways in which Latinos fail, intentionally or unintentionally, to acknowledge that black people are already part of their community. There have been a lot of conversations and images about Latinos and solidarity with black folks, but the fact is there's already black folks in our own community. We understand that slavery also manifests in so many Asian Americans who had to build railroads in this